video will cover special right triangles, specifically 45, 45, 90 triangles. Let's start with how it works. This is an isosceles right triangle, given that it has a 90-degree right angle and two sides that are congruent. Let's use the Pythagorean theorem to show what y is if we know what x is. Let's start with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Combine like terms by adding the coefficients. And we want to solve for y, so we need to get rid of the y squared. I need to undo it by square rooting. When we square root this, we learned this in algebra and we'll go more in depth in algebra 2. But when I take the square root of x squared, I get a plain x. I cannot take the square root of 2 because it becomes a decimal and I want it in simplest radical form. So this is our new formula. I can find my hypotenuse by taking the leg times root 2. So I have made a little chart here. It looks like a tic-tac-toe board. I've put what type of triangle it is, 45, 45, 90, and I have put the lengths of the legs. Notice, this is a 45, 45, 90. Opposite of my 45 is x, and opposite of this 45 is x. And my hypotenuse is y. So L, and the length of my leg times root 2. Let's try some examples. Example 1a. I notice that I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, so I'm going to use the new formula that we learned on the previous page. I know that both my legs are 9, so I can fill in the 9s. I know my hypotenuse is labeled with an h. Next, I'm going to use the formula that I just learned on a previous slide. The hypotenuse is equal to a leg times root 2. Notice that I wrote it in words this time instead of with L. Now, all I do is plug in what I know. My hypotenuse is opposite of my 90 is my h, and that is going to equal 9 root 2. We leave our answers like this because the 2 cannot be broken down and we do not want decimals. Let's try letter B. Again, I have a 45, 45, 90, so I will have the same formulas from before. My L's this time is 2 root 2. That means my other L is the same. X is the hypotenuse. Now that I have transferred everything to my tic-tac-toe board, I can use the formula hypotenuse equals the leg times root 2. X is equal to 2 root 2 times root 2. Notice this is my leg brought straight down, and this is the root 2 brought straight down. Next, I'm going to multiply the root 2 times the root 2, because we know that root 2 times root 2 is the root of 4, which is 2. So now I have 2 times 2, which gives me 4. Both of these examples are helping us find our hypotenuse when we knew both of our legs. Now we're going to try one where we know the hypotenuse and we don't know our legs. What kind of triangle? So we bring down our formulas. In this case, we have x as our leg and 6 as our hypotenuse. We'll use our formula hypotenuse equals leg times root 2 to plug in what we know. Our hypotenuse is 6, our leg is x. So now we need to isolate the x by solving. That means we need to get rid of the multiplying by root 2. Divide by the root of 2 on both sides. The right side simplifies very nicely because the root 2's cancel out and leaves me with just an x. But now I'm left with a 6 over radical 2, which I cannot leave as my answer. I cannot have a radical in the denominator, so we are going to go over something that we have gone over before. Simplifying radicals. There has been a video previous to this you can watch again. I'm going to bring this up here and say that I need to rationalize this. What we learned was that we need to get rid of the radical on the bottom. If I multiply radical 2 by radical 2, I get a plane 2, so that's what I'm going to do. Multiply across the top means I squish them together, and then multiply across the bottom, which gives me 2. Only one step left. I can divide out a 2 on both the top and bottom of my coefficients, and that gives me 3 root 2. Look for my next video on 30, 60, 90.